What a cute game for good kids with druggie colors. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge to fucking sell ya. Off. Oh, I gotta spoil a lot here. This game, unlike Yumi Nikki, does have a coherent plot. A very fucked up plot. I'm not saying it's a bad game, it's actually a very good game. It's done by Mordiscos. I don't know who did Yumi Nikki, obviously, otherwise I would have said the name of the creator. And, interestingly enough, this game is a lot older than people think. This game, when it was in French and on a French forum, was actually given very poor reviews. Now, here's the funny thing. Years later, other people started discovering it, and bigger YouTubers started playing it, like PewDiePie, Markiplier, Cry, and small ones, too. And it was actually considered a very good game, and it is a very good game. So, to the people, the French people who said this game sucked, you guys liked fucking Jerry Lewis, okay? We get to make fun of you now. You ain't so good at picking the good stuff. You eat goose liver. And by the way, I actually technically am part French, so I can say this. Figured I'd throw that out there. Jokes aside, in this game, you are both the puppeteer, and you control a being known as the Batter. Your mission is to purify the world. You cannot directly interact with the game, obviously, but the characters will break the fourth wall quite nicely and talk to you. Well, some will, some won't. The characters that will talk to you are the Batter, the Judge, and Zachary. The Batter is obviously the protagonist of the game. He looks like a baseball player. He hits things with his bat. Yay! The first character you meet is a cat known as the Judge. The Judge is kind of a guardian of the entrance world, Zone 0. And there are there are technically 5 zones. Zone 0, 1, 2, 3, and the room, which is Zone 4. Zone 0 is the entrance zone. There are no enemies. Nothing really to fight normally. There is a secret boss there known as Sugar, where she's the only female boss. Well, no, she's not the only female boss, but she's one of the only 2 female characters in the game. And she's kind of drugged out, it seems. She's definitely a little insane. She seems to have a dancer's vibe. The next characters you'll meet are the Elsons when you go to Zone 1. The Elsons are, well, they're basically all these similar-looking male creatures that if they get stressed, they turn into Burnts, which are monsters. And they seem to always be just on the verge of being fucking stressed. And each set of Elsons from each world has a different quirk. I'll go through zone by zone. And after you meet the Elsons, you meet Zachary. Zachary is the merchant of the game. He's the one that gives you little advice. He's the one who you buy things from. You know, he's, as he says, the stereotypical merchant from any Ender game. And he's the one who knows you're playing a fucking game. The, 1 second, folks. Basically, the Judge acts like your advisor, your tutorial. Okay. There's your cast so far. Now then, let's get to Zone 1. Zone 0 is basically a tutorial level, so we won't really go into that too much. You do go back to fight Sugar, which is why I covered her so early, but you have to go through the other zones first and get certain items and blah, blah, blah. Zone 1 is what I would call the resource world. Each zone has its own job, each Elson in that zone has its own quirks, and each zone has its own guardian. The guardian of Zone 1 is Didon. Didon is this big, scary-looking dude with big teeth and has the disposition of Oscar the fucking Grouch. He doesn't like anyone. He is basically pissy. I should mention that you are trying to purify the world from these things called specters, which are basically ghosts. Yeah. So you're basically a ghostbuster. Now, in this first world, you learn the basic mechanics of the world itself, as in all the zones. The main elements are smoke, meat, plastic, and metal. Metal comes from cows. Meat, I believe, comes from rivers. Plastic comes from the post office, and smoke is mined. Yeah. Meat and plastic I've never been clear on, even with the game, but it's obviously not what you expect. Smoke is for breathing, plastic builds the ground they walk on, the water they swim in, meat is food, it's the only one that makes any sense. Plastic also makes clothes, by the way. And metal makes everything else, including the ground as well, so metal and plastic are used for materials to build things. Smoke is the air, and meat to eat. The Ellisons here are very concerned about their work. You know, they're your typical office drones, and they look it. But all Ellisons look like that. So, and no, the person on the screen isn't an Ellison. That's actually the batter. But these are creatures that are concerned about, pleasing Didon and doing their job, and, they do their work and they're efficient and they don't care about their own safety, they only care about doing their work. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. They're the resource world, and if they don't provide the resources, the rest of the world is going to starve and die. That's not good. And since we're trying to save the world by purifying it, kind of want that to happen, supposedly, right? We also run into another mechanic known as the Padello. It's a duck boat that goes across the water. The end. Then we meet Didon. Didon immediately doesn't like us, and he speaks of a queen. So there's obviously somebody above the Guardians that is ruling. We fight Didon because we think he is a specter, or he's causing the specters, even though we see him killing some of the specters when we run into him another time. So, there's your first glimpse, something's up. So either those specters were doing not what they're supposed to and they got punished, or Didon really isn't trying to fuck everyone over. So, but we have to kill Didon to move on. We do. We also gain an add-on. There are 3 add-ons: Alpha, Omega, and Epsilon. So, yeah, we have 3 add-ons that are our party members, and they look like hula hoops. And they don't talk. So, we kill Didon, and we go to the next world. The next world seems to be a recreational world. This is Zone 2. Zone 2 has a library, a mall, a theme park. But all the Elsons here seem very skittish. They don't want to do anything. They're afraid to touch anything. They're afraid to do anything. They're literally like, I touched that book, I'll get a paper cut. That's how scared they are. They only care about being safe. And we read books that tell about the Guardian, the millennial firebird known as Japhet. We also run into this cat who says, I am Japhet. Meanwhile, the judge actually talks to us and says, hey, have you seen my brother Valerie? So now we have to look for a cat similar to the judge. And of course, Zachary is the one who owns the theme park. Big fucking surprise. and even get to ride on a roller coaster. Come to find out, Valerie ate Japhet when he was in a little tiny form, but didn't chew Japhet, and got possessed. So Japhet is angry because the Elsons are so skittish and scared that they've forgotten about him. So he pretty much goes on a rampage. And we have to kill him. And the judge ends up going into mourning because his brother was killed by Japhet. So we go to Zone 3. Well, the judge is up on the library, yowling. Zone 3 is the factory zone. The Elsons here at first seem very calm, very friendly, very helpful, very sane. This place produces a secret element known as sugar, which is produced from dead bodies. Sugar is like a drug to the Elsons. A little side note, the hidden boss Sugar, or Sucre, which I will start referring to her as Sucre only because of the element sugar. Sucre's room is full of sugar. Yeah. Sucre's a drug addict. And so are the Elsons in Zone 3. In fact, as they start not getting their sugar, they become burnt. The leader of this zone is Enoch, the businessman. On the way there, we take a subway. Meanwhile, Zachary has taken a double role. Zachary wears a mask of a frog normally. He has switched to a cat mask to replace the judge while the judge is indisposed. He's in mourning. He's upset. He just lost his brother. So Zachary is kind of taking the role of both the merchant and the judge, the advisor. Although he's not as good as the judge at his job. The batter goes on to starts to look for Enoch to find out what's going on once he figures out what all this is. And he finds an Elson that is burnt on the tracks. And it's a big Elson, big burn, like big head, and it's screaming help. Now, we've encountered a scream attack with Didon, and it would hurt you. So you naturally think, oh my god, this thing is going to fucking kill me. And it takes a lot of damage to kill it. But it never attacks. All it does is scream for help. It never attacks you. It never attacks you. What is going on here? Why are we killing this thing? Why can't we help it? Why can't we calm it down? Why can't we deburn it? Is it already dead? What is going on? A little mechanic of the game is the batter will, except for one instance, always refuse to run away. The batter refuses to run from a fight, except when he first encounters Enoch. Enoch explains that the guardians that we've been fighting and killing are tied to the world they're in. So that means, Didon was tied to Zone 1, and Japhet was tied to Zone 2. They're essentially gods. And if they die, the world dies, and if the world dies, they probably die too. Batter doesn't believe him. Batter is a bit one-track minded, you'll find out. But we can't kill Enoch, he's too strong. He's, immune to damage. So we bid a hasty retreat until Enoch weakens himself by eating like half the sugar in the factory somehow. And becoming basically Attack on Titan before it existed. So we defeat Enoch, taking off his head. So now we go to the Queen, but first we decide to take a look into the other worlds for the secret items to get either a particular card or a special weapon is actually what you get them for. The worlds are dead. black and white, no bright colors, and the specters are replaced with beings known as secretaries. Much stronger, much nastier. The music is replaced with dark whispering. The Elsons are all gone. Well, there's one hidden in a safe in Zone 2. Otherwise, they're all gone. Nothing left. But when we kill Sugar, Zachary asks about her. He knew her. And then says it's better like that when he finds out Sugar is dead. So now we've got a problem. We've just killed a good chunk of the world. There are 5 zones and we've killed 3 of them. So we march into Zone 4, where we enter the room. The room starts telling a strange story of a little boy who misses his mother and doesn't like his father too much. Strange. And how he met 3 friends. A bird, a tall man, and a big man. A bird, Japhet. A big man, Enoch. And a much friendlier tall man known as Didon. How strange. And then the batter finally meets up with the queen. All while he brushes all this off, not realizing something's up. The queen starts talking about a boy named Hugo. Now, there is a mistranslation in this game. Hugo created the queen and the batter, not the other way around. Although they do act like his parents. But we fight the queen, and the queen scolds you for not caring about Hugo. Ending with the line, "He has your eyes," and the batter countering with, "They're full of fear." Now, in between Zone 1 and Zone 2, and Zone 2 and Zone 3, you do see Hugo. And he's like, oh, this is not good. Something's up. Something is very up here. And if you're not getting the, oh dear God, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I playing this game? Where is the off button? No, I have to keep playing because I want to know if maybe there's something redeemable in this game at this point. Either you haven't been paying attention or you have a stronger constitution than most, dude. Because then you get to Hugo. Now you're thinking this is going to be a big boss battle against a demonic baby. Nope. Hugo's completely helpless. You're beating the shit out of a completely helpless baby. And no, you can't make the batter run. No, you can't make him leave. You then get to the switch. And the judge finally returns, and he's pissed. Wonder why. He tells you flat out what you've been doing. You've destroyed the world, and the batter says it's better like that. That is his goal. It wasn't to save, it was to destroy the world to save it. He was ending everything. So now you have a choice. You are given the only choice in the game, aside from turn the game off. Do you stay with the batter who you've been following and who has been misleading you because you've seen everything through his eyes? Or do you follow the judge and try to redeem yourself? Do you stay loyal, hoping maybe, just maybe the batter has something up his sleeve to fix everything? Or do you just admit you fucked up and go with the judge? If you go with the judge, you see that the worlds are still dead, but they still exist. This is important. But if you go with the batter, switch is off. And there's nothing left. The batter basically suicides. Now, before I get into my theories here, I will say yes, there is the secret ending of The Monkeys. That has no bearing on this, because it was meant to be a goofy, stupid-ass Easter egg. And I'm also going to point out that I'm going with the canon ending of the batter turning off the switch, because it's actually said in the game it's the canon ending. Now, a lot of people have the theory that this is actually Hugo's dying dream. I don't buy into that, because the game, yeah, they point out a lot of things like the smoke is the respirator, blah, 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 blah. I feel it's stretching, it is reaching a little bit to me. It always felt like it was reaching to me. I can see where they're coming from, but I'm not a fan of that type of theory. Well, I am and I'm not, depending on how well it's done. I would rather just treat this as its own universe. Here's what I think happened. I think there originally was a world similar to ours. Something started to happen that was kind of making everyone sick and destroying the world a little bit. It was basically in a shambles. And the queen and the queen and the batter were originally just Hugo's mother and father. And they must have died during this catastrophe somehow. And whoever didn't die mutated. This includes Hugo. Hugo was taking pills to try to correct it, but instead of getting killed or dying or being very weak or very strange looking, Hugo gained the ability to recreate the world. The only other survivors were the tall mister, the bird, and the large mister, also known as Dedan, Japhet, and Enoch. So, one of his first acts were to make them essentially gods, give them their own zones to do. I would think Dedan was kind of an inventor, because he was talking about making padellos. Enoch was a baker. You know, he runs the sugar factory, he makes cakes. Japhet liked to read. He was a librarian in a sense. So, the library was the central point of Zone 2. That being said, sorry about that. I was going to say, Hugo made them into gods. And started rebuilding the zones. He also wanted his mother and father back because they were dead. Although, I think he was probably like 2 or 3 at the time, so he didn't quite understand what was going on. So, he probably just thought he was bringing them home instead of creating new ones. He created the queen, who would run everything, and I think the batter would be the big protector, which is what he saw his father as, a protector. Thus, the batter. But something happened. A little child can't control everything for too long. And maybe something instinctively knew this in Hugo, something that also became the puppeteer. So it created the on-off switch to reset the world. Yeah, I said reset. That's a reset button. I think Hugo also tried to make a big brother and a big sister in the form of Zachary and Sugar, but again, didn't quite work out. Although they were less... Zachary was probably the least demented. And I think the judge and Valerie were meant to be pets. And the Elsons, he wanted people in the world to help with little things. And, you know, what's a world without a lot of people to play with? So he made the Elsons. So Hugo was making a cute little world for himself, like a little kid would. But little kids have nightmares. And he made these creations with minds of their own, so they probably have their own demons. So the specters started to appear as a result of that. The Elsons were getting stressed and would turn into monsters because Hugo thought when adults get mad, they turn into monsters. Maybe his father had anger issues and he always saw it like that. Really, the only... And people would talk about how bad sugar is for you, so maybe that's why sugar is a drug in this world. But, eat your meat. Meat is good for you, so meat was a good thing. But he didn't know quite where it came from, so he made up a place where it came from. He thought maybe metal came from cows. Like, just weird things. Maybe he had a tin cow. Again, sorry about that. I think a lot of where the elements come from, kind of in his head, came from like little toys or little things where he thought, oh, that's where it comes from, or stories he heard, or comics he read, or were read to him, I should say. It's like, oh, that's where it comes from, and it kind of ended up morphed into that, little kid's imagination becomes reality. But again, the nightmares started coming and started warping things. Japhet tried to make everything very safe, and as a result, everyone became very skittish. You keep someone too sheltered, and they're afraid of everything sometimes. Enoch, I think, was not the least corrupt, because, he did make a drug, and he did, but I think he originally made the drug because he thought it was just plain old sugar, it was to make cakes for his little god. Yeah, I'm playing with something in my hand and I'm a little stressed because something keeps ringing when it shouldn't. But at the same time, the Elsons weren't as adaptable to it. So, now I have this little kid's nightmares and the stresses of being adults combined, creating, very, very messed up world that wasn't supposed to be messed up. I think Didon was the least corrupt of the Guardians, to be honest, because he still kept everything running, and that world was actually the sanest of the worlds, because it was still doing what it was supposed to. Nobody was really that freaked out except for like a few that, stressed out and got turned into burns, which I think is an Elson way of dying, but they turn to monsters instead, so those are kind of mercy killings. I think the judge was the most sane of all, since he is classified as a guardian, only because he kind of understood his job, but he was more a welcomer, a porter. I have a cat who does that myself, so I can kind of see that. Japhet, I think, was the most corrupt, because he was actively trying to destroy his own world. Maybe to rebuild it, maybe to teach the Ellison a lesson, maybe just out of frustration and madness. I think Enoch was in the middle. Like, it was still running the way it was, but he was losing control slowly. Like, he was pretty much going the same path as Japhet. And the Queen, unfortunately, in her ivory tower couldn't see all this and couldn't really fix it herself, and was sheltering Hugo because she was afraid that if something happened to Hugo, the whole world would fall apart, which it kind of started to do. The Batter was supposed to protect the world from all of these nightmares, but maybe something about the nightmares corrupted him to the point where he thought, you have to destroy the world to destroy the nightmares. The judge obviously calls him out on this because all he really would have to do is reset the world, and that meant leaving the Guardians alive. Because if the world is reset, the only 3 that wouldn't be affected, well, only 4 would be Hugo, Didon, Enoch, and Japhet, because they weren't products of the imagination. They were outside of it. They were their own independent beings. But the Batter didn't care at that point, just wanted to destroy everything. So when he turned the switch off, that's it. Or is it? Just keep in mind, this also kills Zachary, it kills that Elson, it kills everyone. I think Zachary is kind of a clue as to what would happen. Because Zachary is the one who's hinting at, this is a game. If this is a game, that means somebody can go in there and restart the game. Repress the off button, because they wouldn't be a product of the imagination. They would be a product of something else. So if somebody from outside the game were to go in there and reset the switch, everything would be clean. Everything would be decorrupted. It would be like blowing out a Nintendo cartridge. It would fix everything. Maybe. There is a chance some things may stay very corrupt. And do you really want the batter chasing you? That's my theory about it. Sorry this was so long and had 2 interruptions. For some reason, certain telemarketers are not getting the idea this number is not for them. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.